we'll spend most of our time
collection.
Yeah.
I believe the collection actually goes down to verse 11 as far as with the now concerning phrases. Because even the thing of verse 10 to 11 has to do with the church of Corinth supporting Timothy. So it's really all kind of the same subject. And then now concerning Apollos, who Paul wanted Apollos to go, but he didn't want to at the time. That's all we know. He would do it when he had a convenient season. That's kind of what it says there. Verse 13 is a big jump. And I believe verse 14 is really the theme of the book.
We have come with open hearts. Oh, let the ancient words impart. Holy words of our faith, handed down to this age. Come to us through sacrifice. Oh, heed the faithful word of Christ. Holy words long preserved for our walk in this world. They resound with God's own heart. Oh, let the ancient words impart. Ancient words ever true, changing me and changing you. We have come with open hearts. Oh, let the ancient words impart. Ancient words ever true, changing me and changing you. We have come with open hearts. Oh, let the ancient words impart. Ancient words ever true, changing me and changing you. We have come with open hearts. Oh, let the ancient words impart. We have come with open hearts. Oh, let the ancient words impart.
And good afternoon. Welcome to Searching for the Truth. It is a hot Wednesday afternoon. It's summertime. It's supposed to be, I don't know what the temperature is out there, but it's hot. If it's only 85 degrees, it's still hot because it's so humid.
Yeah.
But anyway, hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, we would love to hear from you. Just send them by way of chat. Whether you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook, we'll be able to see, and we'll share. Whatever it is you have to say, we'll do everything we can to answer your questions from the Bible. And Linda's with us this afternoon, and good afternoon to you too, Linda. Chad is here this afternoon. Appreciate Chad being with us. And all of you who have joined us, again, if you have any questions or comments, let us hear from you. Of course, you can also give us a call, 501-568-1062, 501-568-1062. And as you can see, to my left is James Hamilton. He's ready to take any hard questions that you have this afternoon.
Well, about 1 Corinthians 16. No, any subject, that's what we're here for. Whatever is on the minds of people.
And so as you can see, we are going to be turning our attention back to the book of 1 Corinthians this afternoon. We have actually studied ourselves all the way through this book. We're now in the final chapter, the 16th chapter. And we're going to be looking at probably only the first 4 verses this afternoon. Probably not going to get much further than that. But we'll try to get further than that. And again, if you have any questions or comments, we would love to hear from you. Because as we go through this is a little controversial in the eyes of some. We even have some in our group that disagree with the application of this passage. So we're going to be examining what the Apostle Paul has to say about it and discussing that openly with you. Thank you again, everyone, for being with us. Judy is here. Thank you, Judy. Appreciate you being with us this afternoon. All right. Let's kind of get an overview here. You have the collection for the saints, the directions specifically to the church in Corinth in regard to their provisions for the needy saints in Jerusalem. And so we're going to be talking about that. And then Paul talks about his plans for travel. And that would include, of course, picking up those funds and all of that. But his travel plans are discussed in verses 5 through 9. Paul is then going to discuss Timothy a little bit and Apollos. Maybe the church there had requested the return of Apollos or something about him, but
Paul was wanting Apollos to go there, actually.
Final exhortations are given in verses 13 and 14, and they're rather succinct, but very practical in view of the entirety of the book and what has been said to the Corinthians.
I believe the theme of the book is verse 14.
Yeah, and then the commendation of Stephanas' household and their need to respect one another and those in authority. That they needed that. So,
well, give deference to those that are more involved in the work.
Yes,
because they know more about what's going on. Is pretty much the principle there.
And then the final greetings and the close of the book. Chapter 16 serves as the practical conclusion of this book. I mean, love being exemplified through its sacrificial generosity, its ministering efforts, and also, of course, its partnerships and its personal relationships and interaction with those who were serving and working among them. And, of course, their involvement in mutual encouragement and edification of one another. All this is summed up just really quickly here in this final chapter. So let's begin, and again, as I said, we're going to break this into sections. We'll look at verses 1 through 4 first, okay, and then we'll move on if we get done with that.
Well, I was just going to say, I believe verses 1 through 11 are a section in of themselves, and when he talks about him coming there, that they would send him, and Timothy, when he comes, that you would send him also, that has to do with the church supporting them. And
sure.
So,
I agree with that.
But the division of this part of Corinthians is based upon this phrase, now concerning. Every time it shows up, it talks about something special. And if people understand that, they'll see that chapter 11 belongs with chapters 8, 9, and 10. Chapter 15 belongs with chapters 12, 13, and 14. And chapter 16 will be verses 1 through 11 as a unit. Yep. And then you have concerning Apollos being, pretty much the last thing in verse 12.
Even with that being said, the collection for the church in Judea, the brethren in Judea, that's what he's talking about in verses 1 through 4. And I agree that, and maybe we have someone who would like to argue that, well, this is just for that particular action of helping him, providing benevolent assistance to brethren in need in Judea, and we're not under any instruction regarding just a general collection. Now, okay, your point from verses 5 through 11 would certainly apply in that case.
Yeah, and because it specifically talks about, Timothy and Paul coming at different times.
Well, okay, now concerning the collection for the saints, I have given orders to the churches of Galatia, so you must do also. On the first day of the week, let each one of you lay something aside, storing up as he may prosper, that there be no collections when I come. And when I come, whomever you approve by your letters, I will send to bear your gift to Jerusalem. But if it is fitting that I go also, they will go with me. Now, I want to make one very important observation before we get into the details here. This is a letter to the church at Corinth, so we're dealing with collective action.
Yeah, and he gave the same instructions to other churches in Galatia.
And so when he says, let each one of you, yes, that is individually, but that is individually responding within the collective. They are providing something for the collective action. Okay?
Yep.
That is very important to understand here. When I come, whomever you approve, that is the collective approval. Okay? That's not the individual who has stuck his little bit of money off in the corner somewhere or buried it in his tent. And when Paul comes, Paul's going to come by his house and he's going to give him that little. That's not what's under consideration here. We have a collective command, a collective responsibility, each individual compiling and providing for the collective responsibility that Paul is laying on the church here. And this is a collective action. So I think that's very important.
Yeah.
Let's see. Before we get any further, thank you. Thank you so much, Lori. Yes, 43 years of marriage today. That seems like a long time ago. But it's passed in a hurry. Lori says, my daughter asked an interesting set of questions, or asked me an interesting set of questions concerning the giving. Do we give only when there is a need? If not, do we have examples to give on every first day of the week? Also, if a person doesn't have finances to give, let me pull this back up so everybody can see it again. Also, if a person doesn't have finances to give every week, can the giving in other methods be considered as meeting this scripture? Okay, so I'm going to answer the questions briefly, and then we'll see these play out as we go through, because all of these actually we're actually going to deal with all these. Okay. So, do we give only when there is a need? There should always be a need if you've got a working congregation. Okay, there will always be a need for the Lord's work to be done. And yes, this is a specific command regarding a specific action, but I believe this specific action is also in harmony with or in conjunction with their regular giving. So there's something to be put aside besides what they normally and regularly would give. There should be something set aside by the church to be sent to the brethren in Judea who were in need. But they had other responsibilities besides just that they were fulfilling. So also, on every first day of the week, the language is actually every first day of the week. And this is a pattern. This is something that they were already doing. And so this command to set aside something for the brethren in Judea was all in association with what they had already been doing and was always also going to continue to do. Also, if a person doesn't have finances to give every week, can the giving in other methods be considered as meeting the scripture? We are to give as we have prospered. If you don't prosper in a week, you're not required to give anything that week. Okay, so if you haven't made enough money to pay your bills that week, then you haven't, and you don't have anything to give. Now the next week, if you have, if you get paid double the next week, well, then you'll have something to give. But you give as you're prospered. Okay, and that's every week. How do you prosper this week? You give in conjunction with how you've prospered. So hopefully, and like I said, we're going to see this as we go through, I hope. So, okay, on the first day of the week, let each one of you lay something aside, storing up as he may prosper, that there be no collections when I come. And when I come, whomever you approve by your letters, I will send to bear your gift to Jerusalem. But if it is fitting that I go also, they will go with me. So, Paul gives instructions to the brethren, to the church in Corinth, okay, and the churches of Galatia, to help the poor among the saints in Jerusalem. Why is this important? And what is being accomplished here besides because there is something being accomplished here besides just these needy saints in Jerusalem being supported. Something else is going to come about because of this, and what might that be?
Well, the main thing that Paul points to is in 2 Corinthians, when he's trying to make sure they follow up on their promise that they made a year earlier, that they were going to help out. And so at the end of chapter 9, he saves the best for last, which is for those that love God. This is the greatest motivation, and that is that God is glorified when the Jewish Christians can see the brotherly love of the Gentile Christians. And so God is the one who enables this famine to happen so that there would be this opportunity for this to occur. And this is not the only time this happened. It also happened so that the church in Antioch, which was the first integrated congregation, to have that same opportunity to show that brotherly love to the churches in Judea in the days of Claudius, the Emperor Claudius. So that's what God was really wanting to do, is to bring Jew and Gentile together in a very real way in their hearts. And this is one way to accomplish that.
Absolutely. So, by the way, I give orders to the churches of Galatia, so you must do also. Paul, yes, our giving should be with generosity in our hearts and not by compulsion, right? Not because we are required, but because we love. That's why we ought to give.
That's one of the key characteristics prophesied even in the Old Testament about the nature of the new covenant. We're an army of volunteers, Psalm 110, verse 3. That's the key. So we are to give, but it must come from a willing heart, like for 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 12 points out.
That's right. But understand something. This is still a command.
Sure it is.
Okay? Just because our love, it should be the motivation for our giving, that doesn't nullify the fact this is still something God commands his people to do.
You must do, is what he says.
So it is a duty, okay? But we should lovingly and willingly submit and yield to every command of the Lord. And Rita asked, were they collecting for a specific purpose? Yes. In this particular instance, yes. Now, that they were to set aside for the brethren in Judea, yes, that was a specific thing that they were to be setting aside for. Yes, and it was the needy saints in Jerusalem. That is true. But like I said, this is something, they were setting it aside. There's something else that is there, present, that is coming, or that is coming in, if you will, that these funds for the churches in Judea, or the brethren in Judea, is being set aside from. Okay, so what is it that these funds are being set aside from? That's a question that I think is really interesting, and there are some inferences that we can make from that, and I do believe necessary implications are made by the Lord in this statement. So, to help and support the cause of God, regardless of what it is something we should be willing to do, right? Not because it is an obligation, but because we want the work of the Lord to go forth and to prosper. We want to be a part of that. The general procedure for carrying out financial obligations is prescribed in this text. Yes, we're talking about a specific thing, but would that not apply to anything that's needing to be funded to accomplish the Lord's work?
Sure, and that would include the support of preachers, as he does get into when he would come through there, and also when Timothy would come through there a little bit later on in verses 10 and 11. That's these principles are the instructions, and he taught the same thing in all the churches. So, as he said in chapter 4, verse 17.
So, okay, we command, and we do have a pattern established. This is what Paul commands all churches to do. He commanded those in Galatia, and he commands those in Corinth, the one in Corinth, to do this, to give, and to do it upon the first day of the week, And it is addressing a particular need, but as we've stated, we have an example of how that need was to be addressed. Well, wouldn't that apply to every other need that the church has? If not, why not? When it comes to benevolence, yes, we have a prescribed order. Okay? When it comes to evangelism, which, yes, James is talking about 2 Corinthians 11, verses 8 and 9, Paul does deal with that. You know, shall you muzzle the ox that treads out the grain?
Now he would not take support from them while he remained in Corinth, but now that he's going to be coming through Corinth, he's expecting to receive support from them. But he didn't want to, like, if he settled in a place for a time, he did not want to take the support from the congregation in the time that he was there, because he wanted to set an example of one who labored with his own hands when he was among the cities of the Gentiles, specifically, as he said in Acts chapter 20.
Now, he did take support from Philippi.
And other churches in Macedonia
Yeah.
at the time that he was there in Macedonia.
What
in Achaia.
What about the church's work in edifying its members? If that costs money, where do they get that money? How do they get that money? Is it a work of the? Is edification a work of the church?
Sure.
Okay, so
That's the main work of the church.
I agree. I think so too. That's the
Edify the members so that the members fulfill their individual responsibility of evangelizing. But the church collectively evangelizes if they support preachers to do that work full time.
How much money is needed by a church that's not doing anything?
Well, it might still need some, even if they're meeting.
Yeah, you got to pay the light bill. Okay. Or somebody's got to pay a light bill. Well, maybe you don't have a light bill. Maybe you're meeting in a pavilion without electricity. You got to rent or something. Something's got to be, unless you're worshiping at somebody's house or outside in somebody's yard, you're not having to rent. Well, okay.
By the seashore.
But what are you doing? If you're doing anything that the Lord would have you to do, it's going to require some funding, some money to accomplish it. So, yeah, how much work is being done by a church that doesn't need money? And if a church is working, what are they going to need? They're going to need some money.
It depends on how they're doing the work that they're doing too.
Yeah. Certainly we should do all that we can to limit, that. A church building, okay, the church is commanded to assemble. But should we build some elaborate edifice that costs millions and millions of dollars? That's not a wise use of the Lord's money. We can talk about
expedient.
That.
It's not expedient.
That's another subject, I think, but the point being, every church that's working for the Lord needs funding. Okay? Supporting gospel preachers, that requires funding. Supporting brethren who are in need, regardless of where or when that may be. We have people all the time who are in need. So how do you support that? And again, edification. How do you support that? Well, you've got to support the preacher. You've got to support and provide for the materials that are being produced, whatever it may be. The place that this is taking place. This is something the church is to do. So the Greek literally says the first day of every week. Now, what does that apply to you? In fact, Danker says, Art Gingrich said, it is a mystery as to why the force of the distributed preposition kata, every, was not made evident in the King James Version or the American Standard Version.
Probably because of what was already being practiced at the time. That'd be my guess.
That is an interesting question, though.
That's an interesting observation made by a German.
Yeah.
By the way.
But on the first day of the week. Okay, so every first day of the week. Fee says in his commentary, page 8, 13, and 14, the fact that Paul makes such a reference at all implies that there is some significance to their setting money aside on this day rather than, for example, once a week.
Mm-hmm.
This is verified further by the note in Acts 27, 20 and verse 7, which implies most strongly that Paul and the others waited in Troas until the first day of the week, precisely because that is when the Christians gathered for the breaking of bread.
Yep.
Now, we just got through talking about and spending several afternoons studying Seventh-day Adventism. And I know, let's see, maybe I need to see if that'll stop that. I don't know if everybody else can hear that dinging or not, but I'm hearing it and shouldn't be, actually. Don't know really where it's coming from. But what was I saying?
The significance of it being not just once a week, but specifically saying the first day of the week, just as Acts chapter 20 verse 7 mentions them coming together to break bread.
And we were talking about the seventh day.
In contrast with that,
yeah, observing the Sabbath day, and in fact, the guy said, I'll give $1 million to anybody who can prove from the scripture that God changed the Sabbath to the first day of the week. Well, you can keep your money. That's not that you can't prove that, because God didn't change the Sabbath to the first day of the week. There was no change made as far as one day to another day, but I'll tell you this, the Sabbath day was nailed to the cross. Jesus fulfilled it. Jesus is our Sabbath. Jesus is our day of rest. He is our rest, and it's not just on a 24-hour period time schedule. It is every day, all the time, from now through eternity.
Well, yeah, but so you can't talk about a specific day, and the day is today.
Yeah.
According to Hebrews 4.
There was no change from the Sabbath day to the first. But the disciples did come together on the first day of the week. They came together upon the first day of the week because that's the day that Jesus rose from the dead. That's the day that the church was started. That is the day in which brethren came together to observe the Lord's Supper, and, as we see here, to give of their means. That's when the disciples met, on the first day of the week.
I also believe, if you get to thinking about it, that's also the day he ascended into heaven, was the first day. I think it was also a first day of the week.
Could be. I don't know if you can prove that.
No, maybe not, but it just seemed like it very well could be.
Debbie asked a question. Okay, let's. Is it okay to give to other Church of Christ evangelistic efforts instead of local church? Perhaps money is not being spent wisely, but for personal purposes. Okay, if they're doing things collectively with their funding that violate your conscience, like supporting a sponsoring church arrangement somewhere, or maybe they are supporting institutions, man-made institutions out of the treasury. Maybe they are funding entertainment and recreational activities and facilities and those kinds of things, and that violates your conscience. Okay, I can see that, not providing your financial support to that work, whereas you're providing it for someone else who is preaching the truth. Maybe you are limited in your ability to worship and travel to worship, or find a group that you're in agreement with on those matters. I can see where it would be okay for you to support brethren or another church even because of those things.
Well, yeah, it depends on what kind of evangelistic effort you're talking about. If it's a combination of congregations pooling their money together to evangelize, that's not authorized to start with.
No. Yeah, that's a sign language. But no. See, you can't. Yeah, you got to.
So I mean, the term evangelistic efforts,
like the sponsoring church arrangement, as I mentioned, can you support a congregation that is providing those kinds of things? And it's your money to provide brethren that you agree with, and that, by the way, it is an action. Our contributions are an action of fellowship.
Yeah.
So if I can't have fellowship in those actions that they are using their monies for, then how can I give to that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I need to be in fellowship with somebody who is following the New Testament pattern. So yes, if that's what you're talking about, I agree. Now, if you're, in reality, I mean, if you're worshiping somewhere, let's say that you've had to move because of your age, because of your health, and you're closer to your family, and you want to continue to send your collections back to where you were raised. It's yours. You do with it what you want. But I certainly would encourage brethren, if you're worshiping with a sound group, to support that sound group.
Absolutely. But it seems like her question is, it's being used for personal purposes. I don't know what that might mean. If they're supporting an individual preacher in the congregation there, some of what he receives is going to be used for personal purposes. I mean, to support his family or whatever. That's what I would say about that. But
I think she's talking about what for personal purposes. I think she's talking about the collective, not being spent wisely, but for personal purposes. I think she's talking about other things that she doesn't agree with spiritually.
That may be what she's concerned about, and we need to understand that whatever we contribute, we're having fellowship in what is being done.
That is right. So, also, one is obligated. Notice, on the first day of the week, let each one of you lay something aside, storing up as he may prosper. Okay, one is obligated to contribute as consistently as he has income.
Well, this implies proportionality as well.
Mm-hmm.
As you've been prospered, how does one decide that?
Well, in the old covenant, you had to give a tenth of everything,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, you did that once a year, though.
Yeah, but if you had you were to give a tenth, I don't think that we should consider the new covenant system to require less than the old covenant system.
Well, I agree. I agree with that. I can't imagine the people on the day of Pentecost, receiving the grace of God and think, oh, now we don't have to give as much money as we have been giving.
Yeah.
They gave more, actually. They gave
you'd think
100% of things they sold, like Barnabas.
Thank you so much for calling this afternoon. You have a question or comment? Hello? Hello there. Are you there?
I'm here. Yes.
Okay. Yes. You have a question or comment this afternoon?
I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
Grandma Grant lived in a place that was in the country, and there was no other Church of Christ around. After their Church of Christ had to shut their doors, and they had to go to this one Church of Christ that was liberal, that supported orphans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They just went there solely to take the Lord's Supper, but they sent their money to another congregation to support it.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Absolutely. Because whatever you give that's one example. Absolutely. Whether it's orphan homes, colleges, sponsoring church arrangements, recreation and entertainment facilities, any of those things. Because those are collective actions, and they're taking that money out of the collection. How can I be in fellowship with those things? If I give into that collection, then I am fellowshipping in those things.
Yeah.
So I can't conscientiously do that. So how in the world, what is wrong with taking and supporting other works that are sound, that are doing what the Lord would have them to do? Yes, sir. Well, thank you so much for calling. Man, a good comment.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Yes, sir. All right. Well, I appreciate it very much. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Bye-bye. Appreciate that. Uh-oh. Can't hear the caller online. I got my button pushed. Oh, we have changed up a couple of things, but I wonder if when I silenced my... No, that shouldn't have had anything. It might have, though. Tell you what, I hate that. He was asking the same question basically that Debbie was asking, and talked about his grandparents who had moved to or the location where they lived. The sound congregation closed their doors, and they by necessity went to a more liberal congregation that did some things that they did not agree with, and they just went to partake of the Lord's Supper, and they sent their money to another congregation that was doing what they believed should be done.
Yeah.
So I tell you what, let me, I'm fixing to pick the phone up, and I just turned up my volume to hear the man. Oh, okay. So maybe, well, but I'm fixing to pick up the phone, and you should hear a dial tone. Let me know if you hear it, okay? That should be coming through. Everybody should hear that. And what I did is I turned the... Now I can't hang the phone up because there's a box. All right. What I did is I had muted my computer so we wouldn't have that dinging noise. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it. If it did, then me unmuting it might have fixed it, and you should have been able to hear the dial tone. If you didn't hear the dial tone, let me know, and that means I got something else going on. I mean, it's certainly coming through on my earpiece. I can hear it loud and clear. So it's coming through there. I'll have to figure something else out. So let me know if y'all heard that. Let me do it one more time, okay? Dial tone. And end. Okay. That's a test. So volume is up and I can't hear it, but if everyone else can, then it's fine. Weird. Okay.
One point I was going to make about this, where it talks about everyone, each one of you. There was a lot of collective action being instructed in 1 Corinthians, but it's up to individuals to be obedient to their involvement in that collective action, whether it's church discipline or partaking of the Lord's Supper in the right way, to examine themselves, and here with the collection. Each one is to be personally involved with however he has prospered or she has prospered, but collectively is going to be the end result of that. And that's what the church is doing as a church.
Now, this is weird, okay? Debbie heard it.
And Rita did not.
Lori did not. Debbie did not, or Debbie did hear it, and Rita did not hear it.
Yeah.
I cannot explain that. It all should be coming through exactly the same line. So I don't know. I will investigate, though. It'll take a little time for me to go through and test everything, see what's going on. We did have some changes here because our computers died. We had to replace them. So there may be something in the settings that need to be adjusted. Judy heard it. Okay. Dennis heard it. Laura, you're just out of luck, I guess.
On YouTube, or she said on YouTube as well as Facebook.
I don't know. So okay, yeah, individually, everyone has an income, rich or poor, young or old, male or female. You know, the poor lady who only had 2 mites. Wait a minute, how much did she have?
Yeah, 2 mites.
And how much did she give?
She gave all.
But that's a very, very, very small amount.
Yeah, but Jesus measures by the heart.
Yeah.
And he knows what a person's able to do. And Paul even makes that point. According to what one has, not one does not have. So this idea of just making this commitment and people I heard about, denominations that pull it out.
Okay, thank you. Chris just made the observation. Boom. Now, all right.
Was it low? Or?
Okay, this is weird because it was set up to go through our mixer. It was not coming through our mixer. It was coming through the camera. The audio was coming through the camera. Now, I don't know why EV Mux changed it on me because I've had it set up. It shouldn't have changed after I set it up to come through the mixer. But
we can hear you talking during the opening hymn.
That's because it was coming through the mic instead of coming through the mixer. Now it should only be coming through the mixer. Yeah, and Chris says mics are on now. You should have a much better sound now. If that's why people could hear the phone, because they could hear it coming through the mic, the camera. But now I've got the sound is set to come through the mixer and not through the camera. Again, I don't know. Once you set it up, it's supposed to stay that way, but apparently not. Oh well. All right. We gave the gist of what the individual was talking about, and I think everything's good now. So the poor, you have something to give. Okay, give what you can give. The rich have, give what they give. They may be required to give, or they are required to give more proportionally. So, but okay, it's not a certain percentage. That's true. We're not under the tithing requirements of the old covenant. But understand the principle. I am to give to the point that it's a sacrifice for me to give it. If it's not a sacrifice, if what I give to the Lord is not a sacrifice, if I'm just giving the leftovers, do you think the Lord is any more pleased with me than he was with the Jews in the days of Malachi? Think about that now. So, now, let each one of you lay something aside. What does the phrase mean, lay by him in store, or lay something aside? What is Paul talking about? Is the Christian obligated to contribute into the treasury of the local church, or is this something that he's to do at home, as Paul Calvert has argued here on this format before? Some suggest the expression lay something aside or put aside and save is commonly assumed to suggest save up at home. Is that what Paul is saying?
No.
Prove it, James.
Well, he tells them why at the rest of the verse, that there be no collections when I come. If they all just put it in their piggy bank at home, there still had to be a collection when he got there.
And he'd have to go from house to house to house, right?
Yeah. So that's not what he's telling them. He's telling them they're to make this commitment every week. And that they give. Why?
You know what?
And why the first day of the week? It's because that's when they're gathered together.
But he didn't say every week. He said every first day of the week.
Yeah.
And if it was every first day of the week, what's the point of that if this was something to be done individually at home? What is the point? Why don't you just say, well, every week? Just lay something, every week, just lay something aside. And when Paul's announced that he's coming to town, just bring it to somewhere, and Paul will pick it up. Yeah. Is that what Paul said to do? No, friend, that's not what Paul said to do.
No.
Paul said every first day of the week. So there's a specific day required. And common sense dictates that in order for there not to be a collection when Paul comes, that you had to be putting this aside in a particular place collectively for the group, so when Paul comes, it's there, it's ready to be taken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My friend, that just makes sense. Any other solution doesn't make sense.
Yeah. It's when they were already meeting and they collect it up when they're together.
Mike Willis says, let me just observe that whatever Paul did not be done when he came is precisely what was to be taken care of on the first day of every week. We are forced to conclude that the activity of verses 1 and 2 is a public first day of the week collection. But it certainly seems to me that if they were this is McGuigan now, I'm moved on from Willis. Okay. But it certainly seems to me that if they were keeping it at home, the stipulation of the day, every first day, makes no sense. So see, I'm not the only one that thinks that. Why would it not be just as acceptable and effective to do it on Thursday or Friday or Saturday or Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday?
And even another significant point is the second reason.
Yeah, Paul would be defeating his own desire of having no collections when he comes, since they'd have to bring the money in from homes all over the city.
Yeah, and there were many there in Corinth, according to Acts 18.
The phrase in store derives from thesaurison, an imperative mood, a command,
to treasure up.
Yeah. Present tense, repetitious action, in other words, participle. So it's an imperative mood, present tense, participle. That is, it's a command and it's repetitive action. The verbal action depicts consistently depositing something in a treasury.
Yep.
Each Christian has an obligation to help sustain the local church treasury.
Yeah, this laying by in store, this word here, it's as significant with regard to the collection as baptism is to immersion,
Yeah. And so each Christian has an obligation here. And no problem, Chris. Appreciate you. Thank you much. You told me when it counted, really. You helped us out.
Yeah.
Because I would not have known that something was set up incorrectly if you had not told me. So, I don't know why in the world it changed. I didn't change it. Unless something happened during a reboot situation in which the mixer had become disconnected. If it became disconnected, okay, but it's not now. But anyway, all right. Some attempt to dismiss this passage as authorizing the weekly collection of a local church. They say it is an example for a specific purpose, and we've talked about this a little bit, but now let's get into it. Therefore, it cannot be used as the pattern for collecting funds to support other aspects of the local church's work. Again, Mike Willis in his commentary, Truth Commentary, page 596 and 597, Brother Willis says, some have argued that this passage only authorizes a collection for relieving the needs of the poor among the saints and not for general purposes, such as for buying and maintaining a building, supporting a preacher, etc. This passage has never been used to show all of the scriptural usages of the first day of the week collection. Instead, it has been used, and properly so, as the only passage in the Bible. Now listen carefully, because he's right about this. It's the only passage in the Bible to tell how churches raise their funds in the New Testament. And going back to my point, to say to lay something aside, I think that implies that there's something, a bigger pot, if you will, that this side pot, if you will, is taken from or set aside from. In other words, I believe what Paul is saying is there is supposed to be an earmarked amount to be sent to the brethren in Judea, and you are to set something aside every week, and this is instructions to the collective. So that would imply that there's something else there from which it is being set apart from. Does that make sense? We can know how the money in those treasuries was raised only from this passage. We must consult other New Testament passages to understand all the things for which the collection or a collection can be scripturally spent.
Yeah, and we could almost do the same thing with, the only example we see within a building, when they broke bread was an upper room, and just limit only upper room meetings for the Lord's Supper. That would be a parallel to how they're trying to reason that this first day of the week collection is only for needy saints and there is no treasury in general.
That's an interesting comparison.
But I think the lay and buy and store is treasuring up when they're gathered together, because it is that common treasury that is being treasured up.
Well, there is a common treasure, I believe, being treasured up.
Because it's collective.
But
it's collective.
I agree. And both, it would be collective because this is a specific amount that's being earmarked to be sent to the brethren in Judea. I agree with that. But I believe that there's also, and this is in addition to what they were already doing. See, that's my point.
Yeah.
They had always been giving on the first day of the week, but now they're to give for this particular purpose on the first day of the week. So this is something in addition to what they were already doing.
Yeah, and also on this passages that imply common treasury, I think there's several references to this in the book of Acts, starting with chapter 4.
Lori says, we give because it is our responsibility, but our responsibility is not limited to that giving alone.
Right.
If we see a need to be met, we as individual Christians must meet that need and not only depend on the giving at the church to meet those needs, especially if the need is for a person outside the assembly of the saints.
Exactly. And I would even encourage that kind of setting aside at home so that you could help somebody in case of an emergency.
Yeah,
it's good to think ahead to do that.
And not only that, not just, of course, non-members, non-Christians, but also for personal responsibilities, like a needy widow. Okay, if she has a son, then he is required to take care of her, that the church be not burdened.
Well,
right?
Yeah, but that's talking about regular support when it says taken into the role.
That is true.
Anybody in an emergency could be taken care of by the church.
Sure.
If it's a need and it's an emergency.
That's true. Now, if she has a believing son that is able to take care of her, then he needs to take care of her.
That's right.
Even in those emergency situations, it's his responsibility primarily, not the church's responsibility primarily.
Right.
So, yeah,
but I think it's good to be to think ahead and being lovers of good works did include taking care of the poor in general. That's what God told the people in Isaiah chapter 58. If you're going to fast, well, take the money or the food that you didn't eat because you were fasting. The only way that's going to do any good is if you take that what you would have eaten, give that to somebody who's hungry, and things like that. In Matthew 25 as well.
As he may prosper. Okay, that's one word in the Greek, meaning whatever degree he is prospered by God, week by week, he must contribute a portion to the Lord's work according to his ability. Okay, yeah. So if you don't have any income in a week, what are you required to give during that week? Okay.
Yeah.
So if you make $10 million in a week, how much are you required to give during that week?
Yeah, but there's a proportionality implied, and I do think it's a commitment we make ahead of time.
Yeah.
I'm going to give so much per week, depending on how the week is. I mean, it's going to be how much that is, but the proportionality will be the same. Mm-hmm. And so it might be less one week than another if the income is different.
That's right.
From week to week.
So, point being, yes, we sacrifice, and we sacrifice every week. Okay, it's a sacrifice. Somebody who is just, again, giving the Lord their leftovers, God's not pleased with that.
I believe we should give on the basis of what we're prospered. With some people, the income is monthly; they're salaried. Others, it's hourly wages, so they often get a paycheck every 2 weeks. But whatever the basis is, they need to kind of have an idea of a budget. And financial discipline, the principle of following what the scriptures teach when it comes to financial discipline, people are going to be blessed if they follow those financial principles.
So, okay, again, how much? How? Not a tithe. Okay, we're not under a set percentage. We're not. The New Testament does not do that because it wants you to give from the heart. Okay, and the New Testament instructs us to give according to the following principles: as we prosper, as we've talked about, love and liberality, sacrificially, according to what we have, not according to what we do not have, and what we can give cheerfully. Now, of course, we should be willing to give.
That doesn't mean that a miser can.
I don't have to give because I don't want to give. I hate giving, so I don't have to give anything, right?
Yeah, it's not justifying a miserly attitude at all. No.
The more one is
Only what
prospered,
you can give cheerfully.
the more he should give.
Yeah.
The less is required. It's really that simple. Luke 12, verse 48. Whomever much is given, of him much shall be required.
Yep.
Right? While we do not live under the Old Testament economy, principles can be established. The tithe is required, but was not all that was required.
Yeah, there were several tithes, actually, at least 2 separate tithes, and then one every 3 years. There's also free will offerings, sin offerings when people committed sin. They were also to help the poor on the Feast of Tabernacles. So there's a lot of giving they did. We not even getting into all the purification rituals of the birth of children and things like that. There's just so many ways they were to give.
So that first paragraph there, okay, the higher ideal, the greater principles. We have a greater motivation. We therefore have greater responsibilities. Jesus gave his life for us. I mean, what are we giving for him? And we're not just talking about money, ladies and gentlemen. We're not talking just about what we can get out of our billfold. What about our time? And what about our effort? What about the things that we do for others? And yes, there is a constant sacrificial life to be lived by the faithful child of God. Our bodies are to be used for his reasonable service. Romans 12 and verse 2. So we must give consistently, generously, and joyfully. And so what extent have we given ourselves to the Lord? What ability do we have?
Well, let other people in other countries say, they might think, well, how much money we have here, but that's where it. Even with the Jews, you're comparing apples to oranges.
Yeah, let me use this as an illustration. My good friend Baldwin, whom I was on the program. You didn't hear his voice, but he was communicating through chat on Monday, and I made a comment of how long I've known him and those kinds of things. I know he lives in Anaheim, California, and what's gas out in Anaheim, California right now? What's rent?
$7.
What's rent out in Anaheim, California? What kind of property taxes do you have to pay in Anaheim, California? I mean, what are the costs of groceries in Anaheim, California?
I would be afraid. I would be afraid to find out.
Oh, okay. So somebody who's living in Anaheim, California, may not be able to give as much as somebody who lives in Little Rock, Arkansas, if they're making the same amount of money. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, yeah, our circumstances, our situations are going to, determine a lot of things. What we have prospered is also going to be viewed in what is required of us and, the other things. And by the way, you go out and you've got bills because you bought you a nice bass boat, you bought you a nice 4-wheeler, and you bought you a nice this and that, and you spend a lot of money, you're in debt, and you're struggling to pay all of these, for all of this stuff. and you're giving just a penance to the Lord, something's wrong with that picture, ladies and gentlemen. Very much wrong with it.
Oh, yeah.
So we need to realize and understand that the Lord does expect us to take care of ourselves as far as providing for our own needs. But we should be willing to give up things to sacrifice for the work of the Lord's church. And if we're not, something's wrong. So here are the principles again, not grudgingly, not of necessity. And this is from 2 Corinthians chapter 9 and the previous, starting in 2 Corinthians chapter 8, working all the way through, according to ability, willingly, zealously, generously, bountifully, as purpose in our hearts, not grudgingly, not of necessity. We're to give cheerfully, thanksgiving, liberally, sacrificially. A thermometer, it is a test of our love.
Yeah, that's what he said to the Corinthians.
It promotes more blessings. And by the way, it's not from the concept of, okay, I give. If I give to this ministry, then I'm going to be blessed 10%. It's going to all come back to me.
No, they're missing the point. We are to sow righteousness, and we will reap righteousness. It's very specific. In 2 Corinthians chapter 9, when it's quoted from Psalms, I believe.
It is more blessed to give than to receive. Mm-hmm. The spiritual blessings that we reap are what is
that's why he saved the best for last at the end of chapter 9. That God is glorified by the Jewish Christians. They're going to glorify God for the Gentiles being true brothers in Christ.
On the first day of the week, this is when we are to give. Okay? So, listen, we are stewards. We're stewards of God. Our blessings are to be used to accomplish His work, to be in His service, to bear fruit. Okay? That's what we're to be using, what God blesses us with. Again, that's not just our money. It's certainly part of it, but it's not just our money. It's also our time. It's also our effort and our work. Okay? The manner and the amount and the quality of what we give to the Lord does indeed manifest our love and respect for Him. And the opposite, of course, would also be true, isn't it? If we are miserly and we do not give, okay, and we just give our leftovers, what does that say about our love and respect for the Lord?
Yep.
Malachi 1 and verse 6 says, a son honors his father and a servant his master. If then I am the father, where is my honor? And if I am a master, where is my reverence? Says the Lord of hosts. To you priests who despise my name, yet you say, in what way have we despised your name? Well, they didn't give to him what they were required. They gave their leftovers. Proverbs 3 and verse 9, honor the Lord with your possessions and with the first fruits of all your increase. So, okay, I'm going to have to wrap it up here. We're a little over time, so there's just a few other practical matters about this. Paul in verses 3 and 4, when I come, whomever you approve by your letters, I will send your gift to Jerusalem. Oh, you're with your gift to Jerusalem. Now, that implies something else. Each congregation, okay, they had their own representatives representing them in this transaction. So this is not, all these congregations didn't send to Corinth, and then Corinth be the mother church, if you will. Or
sponsoring church.
Sponsoring, yeah. So that's not what we see here. We see each congregation remaining autonomous in this effort. Okay? It wasn't all thrown into one big pot. Ooh. Okay? Now, the collection was probably a large sum. You think about it. You go from all these churches and you gather all this money and everybody's keeping it separate.
And I think Felix knew that Paul was connected to that money. Mm-hmm. That's why he was looking for a bribe.
Now, if circumstances are such that the mission work demands my journeying, they shall go with me. Okay, so Paul is willing to go.
But each congregation picked their own messenger to go with
Paul.
Right. And the others that were also trusted. The one that's not mentioned.
So, systematic giving prevents chaotic, pressure-filled collections when Paul would arrive. there's order here. There's a system here.
And that's another reason he says, you know, you give as your purpose in your heart, and it's not out of necessity. Because if he shows up with these brethren from Macedonia, who he has bragged about the Corinthians to them, and that motivated them, how embarrassed they're going to be, and then they're going to start digging in their pockets for what to give at the last minute. He's just making sure that's not what's going to happen, and they'll be embarrassed and all that. So it's very clear that our giving is not to be, well, when the plate is passed by, that we just dig in our pocket and just throw something in. It is to be purposed. It is to be budgeted.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, the entirety of the book now, we see in this last chapter, especially here in this first 4 verses, the love that Corinthians were to have for each other is also to be extended beyond themselves, and their love is to be in action, okay? They're to be working together. So, yeah.
And that is the key verse, I think, of the book. Let everything be done in love, in verse 14 of chapter 16. So love is the answer to all their problems. That's why he uses the description that he did back in chapter 13, because it solved every one of the problems they dealt with in the book. But here's the final of it, is helping this problem that's of other Christians in another place.
All right, so we're going to stop right there. We'll pick up there, Lord willing, next week and continue on. I do appreciate very much everybody being with us today. Your comments have been very appreciated. The call, appreciate that, even though most people didn't get to hear it. Or, well, I guess probably nobody got to hear it. I don't know. But anyway, thank you, everybody, and I think I got that situation fixed, and I'll just have to watch out for that from now on, and remember when I'm setting up the videos that it's set right. That's very important, as we saw today. But again, thank you, everybody. Lord willing, we will be back on Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. Don't know what we're talking about yet. I don't really want to talk about Seventh-day Adventism anymore, or the Sabbath day, or the Law of Moses, or any of that stuff that's been going on in the group. And by the way, I haven't heard anything else from Mr. James Tierney. I haven't heard a word since he complained that the last thing I got was he was really upset because I was restricting his comments. But that's okay. I haven't restricted him making posts or comments, except for the fact that they're just on approval now. So I get to see them before I approve them. And you know what? If you behave, you don't have to worry about that. So anyway, he was answered, and I think thoroughly, and I think he's just frustrated that we did answer him the way that we did. So anyway, thank you, everybody, for being with us today. Lord willing, we'll be back Friday. And if you have anything that you want to talk about, oh, by the way, I do remember something. Ernest was asking about talking about discipline, church discipline. We may talk about that on Friday. May do that Friday. So anyway, anything else, James?
No, I appreciate the discussion and everybody's participation.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Lord willing, we will see you again on Friday. Till then, may God bless. Have a great rest of your day.
each heart, O Lamb of God, I come. I come broken to be mended. I come wounded to be healed. I come desperate to be rescued. I come empty to be filled. I come guilty to be pardoned by the blood of Christ the Lamb. And I'm welcome with open arms, praise God, just as I am. Just as I am, I would be lost, but mercy and grace my freedom bought. And now to glory in your cross, O Lamb of God, I come. I come broken to be mended. I come wounded to be healed. I come desperate to be rescued. I come empty to be filled. I come guilty to be pardoned by the blood of Christ the Lamb. And I'm welcome with open arms.